Get started, everybody. This is Cindy with Energized Living Today. And I want to tell you, well, first of all, let me just go over a little bit of what we're going to be covering today. And let me get over here to my notes. Today, we're going to be talking more in depth about the first storm, which is envy. And I'm going to put after that, I think, because of what I saw, the visions I saw in the last 2 days. And we're going to discuss whether that's the first one or the second one. And I hope that Masami's on, because I want to, of course, ask her as well. I was also introduced to the first angel, which was absolutely a surprise. And yet I should have known. And it was very cool. And before we get started, though, I want to just remind everybody, please put your prayers, email me your prayers to soulgangprayerwave@gmail.com. And if you want to place someone in the prayer wave yourself, I just really highly recommend to everybody that you do, because not just me, anyone can be placed in by anyone. And you'll be able to tell if they are ready to receive it. Now, there are some people that they don't want to go in the prayer wave, and we can't go against someone's free will. And so what happened the other day when someone was telling me about this young man, I tried to put him in the prayer wave, and he was kicking and screaming, and all of a sudden the kiddie pool showed up. And I was able to put him in the kiddie pool. And I just laughed. I just thought that was the funniest thing. He can handle a little bit, but he couldn't handle the strength of the full prayer wave. He's not there yet. So at least we can start in little ways. And that was really fun. So place people wherever you think that they need to be. If you know that they are ready to receive full healing from us, the full energy from us, then place them right in that prayer wave. And if you would like me to do it, I just have this wonderful ritual every morning where I do that. So go ahead and send them there if you need prayer, or if you if you want to send energy there. The more energy, the better. 8 o'clock every morning. And wherever 8 a.m. is for you, also on any double-digit numbers that are coming up for you, stop and just give a little booster all day long when you see that.
Can you get Trump in the kiddie pool?
Nope, I couldn't even get him in the kiddie pool. I tried, and he started to put a toe in and left fast. He doesn't understand. And I don't want to get political, because it really isn't political. It's about his divine journey that he's on here. And I want people to remember, when I talk about him in any way, by the way, we need to refer to him as 45, because we started getting bots coming after us when we said his name. So I refer to him as 45 because he's number 45, and which is a 9, and that's a completion number, and so for me, I realize that he has everything I've seen. He's lost his way. And when I talked to God about him, he says, and asked, he just simply said, he does not know me. So if he doesn't know him, I can't be the one to introduce him. He's got to learn in his own time, in his own way. He will remember, because he's come here with a divine contract. And just very quickly, he is not the chosen one. He is a volunteer. And that's very different, everybody. When each of us have a solo contract that we come in with, we are volunteering for something. We are not assigned. That's the way that I feel. Does anybody have a different feeling about that, by the way, before we get going? If you want to raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Does anybody believe the same way or get the same thing? Yeah. So I think a lot of people, they're feeling that way. So we've got to understand.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, except that you asked about Masami.
Yeah.
I've sent her a note reminding her that it is 3 p.m. Eastern, that it's 2 p.m. for you guys, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
And for her, no, hers is 1 p.m. So I think
Yeah, she's in
I haven't
Colorado.
heard back from her, but I did send a note back to her. So I wanted to let you know.
Okay, thank you so
Sorry to
much.
interrupt.
That's okay. So anyways, all that to say, we can't put anybody in the pool unless they are willing. Everyone has free will, and they'll come to it on their own time. And a good example of that was a gentleman that I talked to today. And Ferris was kind of halfway listening, and he said, I heard that conversation sounded more like an interview. Who was it? And I said, oh, it was someone reminding me of my doctor's appointment tomorrow. He said, you were interviewing him? And I said, well, you just get that feeling about someone. And he started telling the story of his journey. And by the way, I canceled my doctor's appointment because I said, I have somebody that just had open heart surgery here, and I don't want to put him in jeopardy by going to a place where there's a lot of sick people. And so I would rather postpone it for at least a month. And he goes, I really understand. I've also had open heart surgery. And I had this little, tell me about that. And he said, well, I actually had to have a full heart replacement. And he said for 2.5 years, I had a mechanical heart. And he said, but about 6 months before that, I was in a Cracker Barrel. And this lady came up to me and said, you don't know God. And he said, what? And she said, yeah, I know that because yesterday you said to your friend, and pointed to the friend that he was with, that you don't believe anything that you can't see or hear or touch. And his eyes got real big, and he said, how do you know this? And she said, because I talk to God. I know God. And he said, well, I've never believed that stuff. And she starts talking and said, God has a big mission for you, but you have to open your heart. and there's a whole story. His whole story is actually online, and I'm going to look for it and I'll put it on our Facebook page. And he starts telling me the story. And he said, before that, I was an atheist. I had no belief system. And this woman opened my eyes and then launched this whole journey of opening my heart. And now he's had the transplant, and he said, I'm about to be 40 years old. I got to see 40. I never thought I would. And he said, and I'm a believer. So when I say that, when people are not ready, they're not going to come. But when the right person speaks the words to them, it opens their heart. And sometimes it's literal. And we've experienced that right here. And when he started telling me this story, does this all sound familiar, everybody? And by the way, I did record it. This is the second time that I have recorded a call when I just felt like, switch on your recorder to get this so I remember it properly. So I do have the recording of our conversation today. And I also have a recording of the conversation yesterday that I had that was very interesting. On the way to, oh, wait a minute. Before we get that, I want to see if, get there. Is Masami here? Did she come in yet? No, I'm not seeing her. Okay. If you could let me know, Mary, when she comes on, if you can kind of watch for that. Before I get to that, though, I want to, first of all, talk about the Saturday event. And this is a fundraiser event. So we are going to have fun. And the way that I'm seeing what we are doing is we have this main event on Sunday, which is like our unity, our center of spiritual living. And then we have our fun days, our fun Fridays, and this is a special event that helps raise funds to support what it is that we're doing. It is, it supports our speakers as we're bringing them in so that we can continue to have a shopping cart for them and all those expenses that come in. So that's kind of how I'm looking at this, and we're going to have some committee meetings about what that's going to look like. But this is our first event, and we have two very phenomenal astrologers, and you know Lorelei, and you also have met Susie Kerr-Wright, and we're going to be talking about the summer solstice, how this is opening up a divine portal and what that means for us. And then look at all the energy, everybody, that's at play right now. We've got the Mercury is going into retrograde. Has it yet? Isn't it today, Patricia? Do you know if that's,
Yeah,
do you
it's
happen to know
station
what time?
direct, and it's going retrograde today, but it's station direct, which is why we all felt this full stop.
Okay. All right. That explains a bunch. Okay. So that's the energy that is starting now. And then we have the summer solstice or winter, depending on which hemisphere you're in. We also have a full moon on Sunday, a new moon on Sunday. And we also have a lunar eclipse, or is it a solar eclipse? It's a solar eclipse, isn't it? So we've got all this different energy that is going on right now, and we can all feel this real buzz in our bodies. And what does this all mean to us? And they're going to unpack that for us and tell us what that means now, what we are likely to be feeling, and what we can expect for the future. And what they're going to do is go through each birth chart, or each birth sign, not chart, but each sign, and talk a little bit about what you might be feeling. So we're going to be doing that at 5 o'clock Eastern on Saturday, and it is only $55. You're getting two experts here, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So we would like to keep the numbers to about 20 to 25. So sign up right away if this is something that you want to do. We're trying to keep it down so we can keep this kind of an intimate group. And the link, let me go ahead and put the link in there for everybody real quick so that you can get to it. Where is it? Here we go. There you go. So you can go there and you can sign up and read a little bit more about that. And that's going to be fun. And again, it's the first one that we've done like this. So we're experimenting with things that we can do here for the community to keep things really fun and light as we go through kind of some heaviness. We're going to go through some heaviness in this country. We already have been, and it's coming again. I see it coming. And so not only do I see it, but we're all feeling this, which is why we are learning about the 7 storms from Uriel. And we are told that there are 7 angels that are going to be helping us. And at first I thought they were all archangels, and I have learned that they are not. In fact, they can be earth angels. And that has been an interesting, very interesting journey in the last couple of days. As I said, the video is on Facebook. I have put a link in our newsletter on how to get to our Facebook page. If you don't like Facebook, we also have posted it on YouTube, although I just realized I put it on the wrong channel. Mercury retrograde's already affecting me, I guess. I don't know. But if you go about 12 minutes into the video, you will see where we start describing the 7 storms that we are now experiencing currently. We've experienced them in the past, but these are the primary ones that we're experiencing right now. And there's an angel, as I said, that's going to be dispatched to help with the storm. And in a very humorous way, the first angel that came to me said that we are all asked to be meteorologists in these storms. So we're going to be studying the storms. And that's what meteorology is the study of storms. And so I thought that was kind of cool and funny and fun. And the first one that I got was envy. And the second one it came out as willful ignorance, but that felt like that belonged to all of them, not just the one. So there's some confusion there. And then yesterday, on the way to the VA to take Ferris to see all of his doctors, they called us early, and like I said, I ended up uh, my whole day got disjointed a bit, but not really. I was led right where I was supposed to be. I dropped him off because I can't go in the VA, and I started taking off. I was on my way to Panera, took a wrong turn, and ended up at Barnes & Noble. I decided, okay, instead of doubling back, I'll go ahead and go to Barnes & Noble. And their coffee shop was closed. So I went down to the Starbucks just up the street. And as I was getting out of the car, oh, wait a minute, I got to back up, don't I, Ferris? Ferris,
Yeah.
are you there?
Yes, I'm here. And by the way, Masami's in the house.
Oh, Masami, yay! So I'm so glad, Masami. You want to say hi to everybody? Is she
She's here, but her
online?
video and audio are not on yet.
Okay, all right, she'll be here in just a second. So I've got to back up, y'all. I'm getting ahead of myself. On the way, I saw the first angel, and then all of a sudden the name Venus popped into my head, and or the word Venus, and then zenith, and I couldn't understand if it was Venus or zenith, and I asked Ferris, what does that mean to you? And does it mean anything to you? Because it's really strong. And he said, no, doesn't mean anything. How did you reply to me, Ferris?
Zenith is the top, or a
Okay.
TV.
Yeah, or TV. And I didn't know which one it was. So I end up in front of this Starbucks, and I get out of the car, and a lady calls to me. And by the way, along with Venus comes a figure of a woman, and she has red hair, blue eyes. And I get out of the car, and this person calls out to me about my dog, and I turn and look, and she has red hair and blue eyes. And so I walked up to her, and she said, what a beautiful puppy. And she showed me her puppies. And I just had this strong knowing to ask her what Venus meant to her. And I said, Venus or zenith, do either of those mean anything to you? And she said, my Venus is in Pisces, and I'm a very sensual person. She said, and I consider myself Venus. And I went, ding, 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 got the right person, confirmation. So I actually switched on my recorder. It was another one of those things that said, record this conversation. And as I go through these, I told everyone there will always be proof. And so I have evidence of this. She does know that I recorded her, and she was perfectly fine with that. And I thought, okay, but isn't that the second chakra? And we're going to be talking about the first. And so I began this conversation, and I said, I had this feeling to take her to lunch. So I said, come on down let's have a coffee. And are you hungry? And she said, oh yes, I'm very hungry. I'm homeless, and I'm actually living in my car. And she said, but it's temporary. You know, some things happened to me, and some pretty scary things. And I really, and she was in a very nice car, by the way. She says, I have very expensive taste, and I love things. She said, I'm a total Venus, and I love really nice things. And sometimes that can get me in trouble, and some of the relationships I choose can get me in trouble. And she said, then I find out that, you know, my choices, I can't have food, or I don't have food, and I don't have shelter. So right now I'm living in my very nice car with my 2 dogs. And she started telling me about the journey that she's been on, and she's very much into astrology. And she said, she introduced herself very quickly as a Christian. And then she said, I really should I really should clarify that, because even though I consider myself a Christian, it's almost like I have more of a consciousness about Christ and living from the heart. And she's, you know, but as she talked, I realized she had a lot of confusion going on because of everything that's happened to her recently. So Masami, I want you to come on, and if you are on, and I want you to talk about the first chakra and how this relates to, her real name is Amanda. And she said I could share this story today, so I'm not telling tales out of school. So tell us about that first chakra.
Okay, let me take a breath. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm in between clients, so it's just I can only get on till I have a next person at 2
Okay.
my time, so about a half an hour or so. Sorry, but I really wanted to get on. I'm sorry to be so abrupt. So you're asking about what the first chakra is and her position is. So
Because I thought she was second. When she said she was Venus, I thought, well, that would be the second chakra. But as I listened to her conversation again just before we came on, and she starts talking about her circumstances and how she ended up homeless, and that she hasn't ate in a while, had anything to eat. And she didn't have a whole lot of money to journey on. She didn't know where she was going to end up. She just knew that it was dangerous to stay in Florida, which is where she was traveling from.
So anybody that knows about first chakra is already feeling this, right? And Patricia, you're definitely feeling that one. You're very sensitive to this stuff. Joy too. But it's very much visceral in our legs. So I'm actually sweating in my legs right now as you were talking about it, especially in my thighs. So obviously the first chakra is all about, do you belong, right? And in the security, safety. So it's basically the base layer of the Maslow's pyramid, of the base layer, where that is your basic needs. So what she's talking about is, my basic needs are not being met. I don't have a shelter. I don't have food. I don't have a good health that I know I can be okay with. So there's this basic needs that are being upside down. So we talked about it last time, that the chakra's gotten completely uprooted and then upside down. So she feels that. So she is basically showing you what that looks like in a person that you just happen to run into her. Is that correct?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. No,
Yes. And she used the word, I don't belong anywhere.
Yeah. And that's something
I don't have a community. She said, I haven't talked to anybody in days. It's like people are afraid of me and I don't belong.
Yeah. So the first chakra is all about the tribe, right? Where do you belong? Where's your family? Where are your ancestors from? Do you have a community that supports you? Do you have people that care for you? Just truly a basic human needs are not being met, is what she was expressing to you. So that's incredible that the universe gave you a beautiful example. But what that does is, that first chakra has so much to do with what happens on the second chakra. Because if you don't have that connection at the base, you are not going to find a place of creativity, a place of expression, because the second chakra is what you use. What do you do once you have a belonging, where you know where you can stay, where you feel like you're safe, you have a shelter, you don't have to worry about being attacked tonight. That's when you can start to tap into your deep creativity. It's different creativity than the ones that gets expressed in your heart and fifth chakra. Those are a little bit more poetic. That's a little bit more word related. That's more consciously formulating the creativity. That's at the upper chakras. But the second chakra is a feeling of, I want to share my physiology with somebody. I want to have essential connections, but you have to be feeling safe to be wanting to undress yourself, to share a bed with somebody, right? To co-create something, to birth something. That is going to be very difficult to do. So I think I feel like what the universe is saying to all of us, maybe through you, is spend a little bit more time talking about the first chakra, because that is what's been questioned right now. And once we digest that first chakra a little bit more, I think the second chakra will present itself to all of us.
Well, that's why today we wanted to talk about, the 7 storms. And here's my question. I started questioning whether or not envy, which is the first storm, is actually the second storm, and the first one is fear. Or is it reversed? Fear keeps coming up in that, or is fear the creation of all of the storms?
Yeah, I think we talked about a little bit about this, but the fear is the underlining storm of all things, all throughout the 7.
Because she did use the word envy, and only she said, people envy me.
Wow.
That was her words, is, well, people envy me because they know I have this gift, and they know that that I have a lot of spiritual connections. And then she looked at me and she said, you have a direct line to God, right? And this is recorded, by the way, her saying this to me. And I said, oh yes, I'm well aware. And the more she talked, the more I realized that she has some instability because there's so much fear in what she's experiencing right now, being homeless in this. I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful car that she was in. And I'll post her picture, by the way. We ended up there were 3 of us, random people sitting outside of Starbucks. We start the conversation, we sit down. Not long afterwards, this other lady comes up and said, where 2 or more are gathered. She said, you don't have to have a church. And she said, all of that, they've blown the whole thing out of proportion. And she starts this conversation with us. So she just kind of jumps in the middle. So there were 3 of us having this conversation. So when I post this, it's the picture, it'll be a picture of Cynthia, which was the 3rd woman, Amanda, and she likes to be referred to as Venus, and then, of course, myself.
Wow. Yeah, and I think,
How do you like that with envy? She says the word envy, and I'm thinking, but she sure is experiencing a lot of fear. And there was a lot of, her thought process, thinking people were now hunting her down and following her, and she was being tracked in some way. So I know what that post-traumatic stress looks like when people start experiencing those things. And I recognize it from when my aunt was homeless and she first got here, and it was very similar. And I just thought, wow, she definitely, that first storm, she represented it completely.
Well, you know that the human nature, so human nature meaning part of the brain, it's called amygdala. Amygdala is very much connected to our activities at the first chakra, because amygdala is always looking for fear, and it's always looking for something dangerous. And it's always looking around going, what's going to break? What's going to be, attacking me? Am I going to be safe? Am I going to be safe? It's asking yourself, am I going to be safe all the time? So basically how humans have evolved to this point is to conquer in the quote, to how to work with it, how to dance with the fear, and to tell yourselves that, okay, I don't need to stay in a kind of a lizard part of the brain, which is the oldest part of the brain that's constantly looking for fear. But that's what led us to the next stage, was more of a mammalian brain, where you started to actually start communities, you work together, and then we go into the human brain, which is the most developed part of the brain. But that goes with the chakra systems too. So it makes sense that the she is fearful right now, because her basic Maslow's pyramid of the baseline, that's the first chakra, and it's the amygdala part of the brain that is getting fired up. And it's very difficult once the amygdala gets ignited like that. It becomes almost irrational level of fear will start to kick in, and it gets heated up like somebody has lit the match, and then it's just combustions going on inside there. So what she needs really, and what we all could provide for one another, is to how do we cool that part of the amygdala, and to create the fear that is not so animalistic or not so lizard part of the brain, but the fear that can lead us to system changes, fear that can lead us to really speaking up what what systemic racism is all about, and to change the policies and change the culture, because we can elevate. But I think what's happening is many of us in the situation right now, since COVID, really, this isn't just the recent demonstrations and all that, but really 2020, even 2019, we've been shifting more and more towards the part of the brain that is ancient. And because we haven't dealt with our ancient fear, we haven't dealt with the part of our fear that we haven't really all talked about it. We haven't been open to it. This is where what I see in my work is I'm starting to see deep layers of people's old traumas, including my own trauma, that it's incredible. I thought I worked through that, but I'm realizing that it's in my cells, it's in my system, it's in my blood. And we are all having to face this deepest part of the fear that we can't even name it. It's irrational. It doesn't make sense that our brain is always looking for fear. But I feel like that's what she is showing us, to say that's where we all are. Can we all work together to elevate? We can.
Well, she was our first angel that, well, before that, this is what I saw on the way when just before the name Venus came to me. I saw Zebra riding next to me on his motorcycle next to my little juke. I have a little white juke, and he's riding next to me. All of a sudden, his motorcycle kind of evaporates and the wings come up, and he has these beautiful black and white wings, and he still has his black and white mohawk, and he starts swooping around, showing off, and just showing off his beauty. And he said, look closely. And when I did, under each of the feathers of his wings was a rainbow of color. And it was all through. It was absolutely gorgeous. But to see the rainbow, you had to look very, very closely. Then the name Zenith or Venus came up. Well, I heard both, and I don't know what the other one means, but she very much said Venus. And then here's this whole story unraveling about the first chakra. I mean, she was a full example. It was like Zebra introduced me to her coming. That's what it felt like. And so my question for you and for everyone, I really want to have an open discussion about this, is the first storm that we are experiencing internally. And this is an internal storm, you know, that like what you're talking about, Masami, but it is also external. We are seeing it in our government. You know, we're seeing it play out in our government. We're seeing it play out all over the place. And we're seeing it in ourselves. So what is that first storm? Is it envy? Is that correct? Or is that supposed to be the second one and the first one fear?
I actually felt that envy was correct when you shared with me.
Okay. It felt correct, but I wanted confirmation. And I would love to know what anybody else has to say. And if you want to unmute yourself, because I am told that we are supposed to be researching this. We're the meteorologists.
Well, you don't absolutely have to fit Maslow here. Besides, he only had 5 levels.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. We're not trying to fit the Maslows. We're not even trying to fit really anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just relating to it.
Yeah.
Seems, intuitively, it seems to me that fear would be the first, but
I think, you know, it's both very related. Because of the fear, we become envious and we become jealous of others. And what takes us to that place of envy is really fear.
Yeah.
But fear can fit into the undercurrent of all things that Cindy has shared with us too.
I agree.
So
So
maybe
that might just be an undercurrent of all of it, like an instigator. Yeah, Mary says fear is an underlying of all of these things. Latin meaning name, what does it say? I got to clear
Oh,
up.
the name Amanda is worthy of love.
Wow. So does anyone else want to talk about this at all, what your feelings are?
I'll raise my hand.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, my name is Lee, and
Hi,
I
Lee.
have not spoken with you and Ferris for a while. Hi, Masami. Hi, Mary. This is really exciting to me, what you're doing. This is very exciting, Cindy,
Thank you.
because if we consider, what are the choices? It's fear or it's love. So are we operating out of fear or are we operating out of love? And all of us are being called to clean up our acts.
Mm-hmm. So the envy, which is the first storm that Archangel Uriel told me about, can that be the base that we all have to look at, being envious of others? I mean,
Absolutely.
look at how
Because
materialistic we've come. Oh, I want what that person has, and I've got to one up this person. You know, it seems like the one-upmanship has become rampant.
well, it's because we are operating from our ego mind code, and that's just it's pure fear, and it's also attachments to everything. There's no neutrality about anything. So everybody's going to be less than or greater than because we don't feel whole in ourselves. I've been doing some reading with Kuan Yin, and one of the things that I discovered was she has 8 great virtues that dissolve the fear. And the virtue that dissolves the fear of jealousy or envy is self-communion. And we are so separated from our hearts
Mm-hmm.
that we're all outside of ourselves, pointing the finger, oh, it's this fault or that blame, or that's the reason, or my childhood, or whatever. And if what I'm hearing you say is that for this first storm, we go into self-communion and just enjoy learning who we are, forgiving whatever it is that we have done or not done. So we can take these steps to heal our country and our nation and truly uphold the basic human rights. I mean, Haile Selassie said this at the United Nations at the end of World War II, that until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of a man's eyes, there will be war. Until the basic human rights are equally guaranteed to all, there will be war. So to get to peace, we have to commune with ourselves and have that direct connection and recognize we are forgiven. We already are forgiven. And now it's time to build a different kind of life. Anyway, thank you for letting me talk so much. I
would like to just read this for you, Lee. Carla asked a question: could self-communion be the eye of the storm? Because we were told to be observers in the eye of the storm without becoming part of the storm. Now we can be involved and influence the storm that is around us, but from a safe perspective. So how do you feel about that, Lee?
Well, what is the eye of the storm? That's where the calm centered place. It's the neutrality.
Yeah.
So I'm not right or wrong. You're not right or wrong. and that self-communion to learn, okay, how do I really communicate my needs without forcing my perspective, right? Stepping out of that neutrality, staying in that neutrality. So yeah, I'll agree. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, can somebody go ahead and keep up with the, because Andrew's not here today. Does anybody want to go ahead and read some of the comments?
I can do it if
Yeah, Mary, that would be helpful because it goes by so fast and then I have
yeah,
to.
it does. Let's see, where's the last one? From Marcia, I agree that fear is underlying all the feelings. I think she may have had envy. She was not aware of envy, the basic stability. Then Carla said, could self-communication be the eye of the storm? Then Pam says, when we come to love ourselves as whole beings, there won't be any need to be envious of any other person, place, or thing. And then I said, well, the weather planes always have to fly into the eye of the storm in order to observe the characteristics of the storm.
Mm-hmm.
And then Patricia
Perfectly
said,
said.
I feel that envy is more destructive than fear.
And we were told that these, Uriel said that these were very destructive storms. So under every storm, there's something, you know, something starts it. You know, you can see, I remember when I was about 14 years old and I'm watching these clouds. My brother and I see these clouds. We were out pulling weeds in the ditch and we look up and there was this, it was like somebody drew a line right across the sky like this. And it was all dark above and all light below. And all of a sudden it started to split like this. And a funnel started coming down. We didn't know what it was. It was just interesting to us. And we're watching this break. And all of a sudden, this tornado forms. And it's white at first until it touched down somewhere. And then it started filling with stuff and it turned dark. And it's coming down our street. And my grandpa Kabiko was there. And he comes running out, screaming at us to get in the basement. We didn't know to even be afraid. At that point, we were watching with interest. How many of us look out there and we're envious of someone? We're watching something of interest and all of a sudden we get involved in the storm. We get caught up in it. And it kind of reminds me of that. If we hadn't moved, we would have been caught in that. It uprooted trees all along the way and took out part of our church at that time. And so, you know, it just kind of reminds me of that.
Well, if I could speak for just a moment. When I said I feel that envy is more destructive than fear, fear has a little bit of a purpose. It's the kidneys, it's that adrenaline, it's get out of the way of the tornado. Mm-hmm. And I don't see a real benefit to envy. I don't know that it really serves us. That's why I was thinking it was more destructive, is that it's always looking outside. It's always looking outside to feel and envious of something. There's a not enoughness. But a little bit of fear isn't necessarily a bad thing because it's the adrenaline to say, move to safety. It's when we're stuck, like Masami said, in that loop where, you know, like when we had 9/11 and we were constantly on orange alert, psychologists were saying we can't stay at that alert level and sustain because we just have adrenal burnout. And with COVID, we're about there where it's that constant, when are we opening? What's next? When's the next wave? We're at orange level. We're not necessarily in red. We're just at that weight and there's danger and I don't know what to do. And I think we're just really burning it out. Mm. So that was but that was my comment of envy. It just feels a lot more destructive. Doesn't seem to have a real purpose like fear does.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree with you, Patricia. Envy is very low on the vibrational scale. You know, if you know of the vibrational scales of different words, envy is one of the bottom. Jealousy and envy, because that means you don't have self-esteem if you're envious of others. So not only You're looking at others and what they have as something you wish to take or to have. But that scale of envy comes from you feeling lack. There's always lacking something that you're trying to fulfill. So it's no winning with having that emotions of envy. That's why it's very destructive to consumerism culture that we live in, as well as to your own physiology in your body. When I work with clients who are envious, it's very destructive. So they will come with chronic illnesses. And they will talk a lot about not just the envy of others, but envy towards what they used to have also. They will often say, I used to be able to do this. I used to be able to do that. I used to have this, and now I don't. And their focus is all on the wants, and it's an immediate kind of a sweet taste. They just want something sweet to taste so they can satiate that instead of what does the body really need. So there's not a lot of pausing going on. There are not a lot of self discovery going on. There are no curiosity going on when envy takes over. And it's a very kind of that low level part of the brain. It's not a high conscious level part of the brain that will respond to envy. So thanks for bringing that up, Patricia. That's awesome.
That's, yeah. That's
Well, I was thinking of that too, and I forget where shame and guilt show up on that scale, but they're right about the same level. Such a low vibration.
Yeah. And you know what lack, envy is lack or perceived lack. It doesn't even have to be lack. It can be perceived lack, or it can be like Sarah was when she was a baby. Or when she was a little girl, she would order what she wanted off the menu, and then she would always look at Gary's plate and like what Gary had better. And it didn't matter what she ordered, or if it was her favorite, or if it was what Gary ordered last time, she always wanted what he had. And how many of us do that? So this storm is the internal storm, and it's what we are witnessing in the world. And one of the not enoughness came up for me, and also obesity. The word obesity came up because, as we know, and for those of you who work with health, you know that that's on the rise, which leads to so many other health issues. And so how does that all fit together?
Well, so Cindy, I'm sorry, I'm going to chime in here about the obesity because it's perfect. So what's going on in, I would say, particularly in a country like United States or even parts of Europe, so wealthier countries with the obesity crisis, is that we are over consuming and we are undernourished. So even though we are consuming a ton of calories, we are always undernourished. And that's kind of the feeling that all feeds into envy also. We have so much. I mean, if you look at in human history, most of us, we may not be the 1%ers in this country or this world, but we have so much. We have cars, we have roof over us, we have a toilet that flushes. There's just so much that we actually have in human history. We are like kings and queens, really, ultimately. But we are so undernourished. We feel undernourished, so we're malnourished. So we're breaking down inside. So it's a very sad situation with so much going on and so much that we can be grateful for. So many of us are not feeling nourished inside. And that undernourished place is what feeds the envy, because you're always looking for more because something did not satiate you. You're never satiated. You can eat a plate full of something, but the next moment, you are not nourished enough so that you look for another thing. I mean, we are caught in this, in complete consumerism. And you turn on any TV, any kind of program, and we are bombarded with and we're shown what we don't have, even though we've just consumed something. We can't stop and feel how satiated we are. And part of, I think, the first chakra issue that I sense in myself as well is not enough time to harvest pauses, to just pause and become still. We don't have a lot of stillness that we practice So we don't step back, sit back and say, wow, I am grateful. We don't take the time to do that. We don't literally digest what we've just consumed. So pausing, stillness. So I feel like we're living in noise, as we all probably have heard that the music is music because there are pauses between the notes.
Mhm.
Pauses between the notes makes music. And I always think of like Asian paintings where there's a no paint color in a certain part of the sheet. We don't fill the whole sheet with colors. But we've lost touch with emptiness and nothingness and the pauses and stillness. And I feel like that's what been asked of us. And I think COVID-19 did that for all of us, to come back into the stillness. So maybe, I don't know, I don't have the solution for this, but I do sense there's too much. We're just constantly, nothing is good enough. So hamster wheel of nothing is good enough.
And that really is cultivated in this society. I have told the story before of when I went out looking for my car and ended up with my little Juke. The first car I looked at was a Lexus, because that's what Gary wanted me to look at. So I went over to the Lexus dealership and I'm walking around looking at the cars and thinking, I don't go away. I work from home. I don't need a fancy car like this. I need, and I decided even the used Lexus was too much for me. So I'm walking back to my car and I hear this girl, and she's apparently it's closing in on her birthday, her 16th birthday. She's not even 16 yet. And she's yelling at her dad and she's saying, "Daddy, I can't believe you would buy me a used car." And she's yelling about this Lexus that I just walked away from because it was too much money for me. And I don't want to spend that kind of money. And so I thought of that and I got in the car and I was actually angry at the dad and saying, you know what you're doing to this child, this little 15-year-old, she's not even 16 yet. And he's saying, but honey, this is your first one and there's more likely to have an accident. And he's trying to reason with her and she's yelling at him. And I'm thinking, we are breeding this. Does that make sense?
It does. And this is when the pause is perfect, Cindy. I think I would love to just all of us just pause and digest what you just shared, because whew, I'm dealing with my own emotions right now, like a lot of anger, like a little sweating going on.
Mm-hmm.
I
didn't know if I should get out and just yell at the guy. That's what I wanted to do. I just sat in the car and I just, what it did though, is it made me stop and think about what are my real needs. I just need a little car to run about. I don't, I'm a professional speaker, but if I go somewhere, it's usually out of state. So I'm going to fly. And the rest of the time, my studio's in the house. So where do I really go? I need a little runabout car. And I kept seeing that little Juke and I didn't know what it was, but it was perfect. It doesn't have fancy, switches for the seats to push it up automatically for you. You have to actually pull up on the little bar and pull it forward. It's not a fancy car and it's everything I need. And it is the best car I've ever had. I love my little Juke. And because of that situation, Masami, I really stopped to think about what are my real needs. And I could have gone with something fancier. And Gary kept leading me. He loves fancy stuff. So he keeps leading me to the top stuff. And I said, I don't need it. I just don't have a need. So
well, she was a beautiful teacher for all of us. I mean, that's like an in-your-face teacher.
it was.
You need that kind of teacher sometimes that would just be screaming at you to get your homework done. So yeah, all of us could spend some time pausing today with that story alone and chew on it and go, what are my true needs? Like, I think all of us are being asked to do that, including myself. I'm going to do that. I'm going to spend some time this afternoon really looking at needs versus wants, because the wants section are going to go towards more envy for me.
Yeah.
This is where the envy gets filled in. So
I just answered a question. just answered because when I first started this, I kept hearing the word want. As Ferris will remember, I kept saying, it's want, it's want, it's want. And then the next thing, but it doesn't fulfill needs. And Ferris said, well, you said want before. Is it needs or wants? And you just answered that.
Good. Well, and I'm sorry, everyone, I do need to get off, but I'm going to just put this, hold on. I'm sorry. I really love to be on it. Oh, sorry. I sent it to Karen privately. Sorry. So what my second storm is that I've been feeling, and I will just share and then have a conversation around this, please. This is what
I was just very quickly, I was asked to ask Patricia about that. And so we will have a conversation on our next conversation, all of us together. So.
Oh, that's good. So the word that keeps coming to me for my second storm is disregard. So it's disregard for all things. And you fill the blank, disregard for yourself, for others, for the nature, for the all living things, all sentient beings. That's what I'm feeling. That's what comes up for me for second storm. So I know, I'm sorry, I'm going to get off.
Okay, I love you. And I'm going to have Patricia come in and speak to that if she will. So I love you. Thank you so much, Masami.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Love you. Cindy, do you want me to catch up the conversation or just
please?
Because otherwise we'll go past what we were talking about. Okay. Masami, as she spoke, I'll go back to her comment. So much of the consumerism culture is based on envy. And then we went through from Lee, I like that, Pat. Envy is the storm, is a separation factor. Self-communion dissolves envy, jealousy, to see oneself as equal / united to the beauty of all. And Patricia says, like we are envious of our lives pre-COVID. And then from Lee, as close to dead as we can get, 20 on the wholeness scale. From Penny, interesting about envy of former self or past. From Patricia, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but I heard a great saying recently. The grass is always greener where it is watered. I like that.
Exactly.
From Joan, on the Hawkins scale, the lowest emotions on the scale is shame, then guilt is above that, then fear. Envy is more or less there. And then from Lee to everyone, wow, Masami, I say that too. Wow, Masami, thank you. And then from Lee, harvest pauses, become still, satiated, gratitude. Digest what we have just consumed and create something new. Cultivate the joy of. And then from Joan, oh yes, the music is viewed in India. Their music and song is continuous. To depict that the divine flow to us is continuous. And from Penny, thanks for coming, Masami. From Patricia, we have such entitlement. From Cindy Weber, good thing I wasn't there or I would have had a chat with the spoiled, rotten little girl.
But, you know, who was watering her grass? Her dad was.
Yeah.
So, you know, you reward behavior you want repeated. And he was rewarding that behavior. So he was watering that grass.
Yeah.
And, you know, who was it that brought up shame, Mary?
It was Joan, I think. Yeah, Joan said on the Hawkins scale, the lowest emotions on the scale is shame.
But we don't even know enough today to feel shame anymore. It's like we bypassed it in some way. I see so many people that they zoom right past shame and they don't even know to feel it anymore.
Yeah, they don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I see that all the time. It's like, you know, it's like a foreign concept.
Not like when we grew up, when we were told shame on you if you did
Yeah.
anything wrong. It was like we were reminded right away. Shame on you.
Yeah.
Okay, that pretty much catches us up. From DJ to everyone, there was one more thing. Irma Bombeck said, "The grass is always greener over the septic tank." Yes, she
Yeah.
did.
I always loved that.
All right, we're caught up other than
Okay.
LOL and ha ha ha.
Thank you.
So there you go.
You do well with that.
Kind of let me know how often you want me to chime in with these, because I
Okay.
don't want to interrupt the flow when
Yeah.
it's going. So if I
Well, I want to get Pat's thoughts on this, and then just open up for questions, and we're going to keep this to, just another 5 minutes or so.
Well, I wanted to talk about as well. I think it was interesting because we had two different versions of the kind of entitlement. There was the "I deserve this," and the child who couldn't understand why she had to drive a used Lexus and how that was really going to embarrass her. And then I remember what Venus said. She said, "I like very nice things, and it's gotten me into trouble." So that envy sometimes, and I've done that as well, where we purchase something out of our range because we feel either that'll make us look better, or we want it because somebody else has it and we know it's out of our range, and it ends up hurting us. In her case, it made her homeless. Well, not only that, but other things as well. So she said, my choices, and then she, has to use her second chakra, which is that creativity, and she loves attention and that sensual feeling, but that has to be used. Maybe she has to get into relationships to support what she needs or what she wants. So it
Aquarius,
makes maybe some,
by the way.
the which?
She's Aquarius.
So it makes us make those decisions where, okay, now I have to do something to support this want that I have, where we think it's a need. And I think Masami saying, let's go back and really look at our wants and our need are very good. In terms of this second chakra, I was thinking more of the hara. I think what she said about disregard makes sense, because when she said that, I kind of felt it in that area. But the hara is, it's not directly in line with the second chakra. It's deeper, and it is part of the hara line. It links all of them. So for me, it becomes our fulcrum. It becomes our balance. It becomes the center of the storm, which is why we always retreat there, and we always, in body work, in martial arts, you always come from that area. It's very stabilizing. So it supports the first chakra, and it supports all the chakras going up. It works with the heart as well, and there's a direct connection between the two of those. And that's what it is. That's what it is for me. We can get into more of it when we talk about the second chakra, but I'll look a little bit more into the disregard, because I did get a hit on that. So we might be working with a couple different things, and maybe the second chakra, because it is so important.
Well,
we're going to have to unpack it a little bit.
What we're looking for is the storm that's currently brewing throughout the world, not just the U.S., throughout the world. And I look forward to meeting with the angels that I've had show up. Totally unexpected.
I can hardly wait to see who shows up for number 2.
Yeah.
Because when somebody
really
said Kuan Yin, I went, oh.
I thought they were going to be archangels. I really did. And then when I saw Zebra become an angel, I thought, oh, our first angel is Zebra. No, he flew right in front of me. And then I saw the name, or heard the name, Venus. And then I run into her. So he is leading me. Just like on that motorcycle, Gary said last night, he told Ferris, I have never seen Cindy have a stronger ride than when Zebra was next to her. It was the strongest ride that she has ever had. I was totally confident. And so here he is guiding me again. So he guided me on the motorcycle. He guided me yesterday and led me right to her. So he is my guide that's going to be taking me to all of the angels that are going to be delivering these messages. It's just, I'm still reeling, flabbergasted. I don't even know how to describe it, from running into this young lady.
But I get chills every time you mention, when you talk about his open, like even now I get chills again, opening the wings and the rainbow. It
Oh,
gives me chills every time you mention it. So
I wished I
that's
was an
going to be
artist. I would love to draw it because
Oh,
perfectly the most beautiful angel I have ever seen. And at first, and I think it's interesting that at first glance, you only think he's black and white until you look closely. Just,
but you do see the rainbow when you look in the blackest wings of the birds and you see the color shift in them.
mhm,
You see the rainbow in the black.
yeah.
It's all colors, just reflected back at you. It would be interesting. I wonder. Remember your friend? I'm losing her name. The one who does those beautiful pictures, like the one behind you. I wonder if she could translate something with zebra.
I wonder if
I mean,
she
her
can.
own vision, but I wonder if you could explain it enough that.
Mark Romero is doing music for it, for zebra, putting zebra to, and his meaning to music. Isn't that cool? Just he's guiding us all. Another phrase that I just wrote down that came to me is "I deserve this." How many times do either we say or do you hear other people say, "I've had a rough day at work and I deserve this. I deserve to go to Starbucks. I deserve a Krispy Kreme donut. I deserve, a new car. I've worked hard. I deserve this. I deserve that." And isn't that deservedness part of the problem too? We didn't get paid off like that when we were kids. Why do I have to clean my room? Because I told you to. Plain and simple. Why do I have to take out the trash? Because it's going to stink if we don't. So take it out. It's really an interesting place that we've come to.
Yeah, just a couple of comments here from Joan. But it all behooves us to ask why a thing happens. We can only grow out of the observance of the polarities that happen all around us. These are important to allow us to see where we are in progression and where others aren't. And then Marcia asks, do we have a word for the opposite of envy?
That's,
What
by
are
the
we
way,
looking to
that's
replace
actually,
envy with?
Mary, that's actually ill behooves us.
Oh, okay. Ill behooves. Thank you, Ferris. Yes. It from Joan, but it ill behooves us to ask why a thing happens. I'm sorry, Joan.
And what she just said there is what we talked about before, and that is being at the center of the storm, the calm, staying in the calm and observing without becoming part of the problem or embracing one. And sometimes one of the storms wants to pull on us. If we got, I deserve this, whatever that is, then it can pull us in one direction or another direction. It kind of can kick us around to the different storms if we're feeling, a particular draw towards one, or we're bumping into it all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, then another comment is Jay Darnell. I don't know how to say your name, but it says the opposite. I see you. The opposite of envy is gratitude. And then from Joan to everybody, not mine ideology, to be honest. And then from Pam, and generosity. And then from Jimmy to go, I think that is. I heard a guy say, I worked so hard, I get to party hard. Then he took a hit of mescaline. So, and then from Patricia, it's interesting that we crave the worst foods for us when we feel the worst. And then from DJ to everybody, true abundance is our connection to source. And that is all.
Beautiful. And envy, as Archangel Uriel said, envy erupts from unfulfilled need. And it invites lust, greed, revenge, and it's the absolute destruction of trust. So you said that, what did they say that? Because I had it as trust, and who was it said it was what? The opposite of envy? Oh, gratitude. So would it be the absolute destruction of gratitude? Or would it be trust? Does anybody have a thought on that? Ferris?
I'm not sure either one rings true for me.
Really? I would like everybody to think about that. Does anybody want to contribute your thoughts there? Okay, and Patricia says, yeah, the first chakra is lack of trust. And that's how it came to me, as trust. So that's it really is about survival, isn't it? Not being able to trust someone. And that's what I saw in Amanda, because as we continued the conversation, and by the way, I have to say, you know, I had this, like the angel that helped me, that bought my meal at Red Lobster, kind of fluttered in front of me. And I thought, I need to help this young lady out. And I thought, oh, we just went to the store and I didn't have any money. And so I was looking in the bottom of my purse for a pen. She said, can you write down your email address to me? And so I was looking for a pen, and there was some money in the bottom of my purse that I didn't even remember I had. It just showed up. And I had looked for some the other day when we were somewhere, and I didn't have enough money to pay for something. And there was that money. So I was able to help her out. And I'm just like, okay, where'd that come from? It just showed up. Pretty phenomenal. And I was going to say something else too. Okay, Anya says it's about manifestation. We don't manifest from lack, but from abundance. That is true. Can't explain it fully now, but it's a start. And Joan, maybe a lack of connectedness. And that word connectedness keeps coming up. We're so separate. And remember, everybody, what I said last year, in getting off on this tangent for just a second, what Ferris and I said is there's a lack of connectedness, and that's why we kept having a feeling that the studio where Ferris lived needed to become a conscious living center where people could gather, because there wasn't enough connectiveness. And that's what I'm feeling. And isn't it interesting, the very thing that's divided the people, which is the internet, online, social media, all these things have caused this great division among people, and it's brought us back together. Because of the virus, it's also caused us to get back together, to appreciate, wait a minute, I need people. So the very thing that separated a lot of us has brought us back together. Interesting how this all works. Well, I'm going to, is there anything else that I missed, Mary?
I don't think so.
Okay.
There's a couple of things that have just come in, but
Okay.
from Anya, tribal thinking versus individuality. DJ says, love your beautiful soul so much.
Well, I hope that this has been as enlightening for all of you as it is for me. And then the next time we will be talking about the second, and the second storm, and how it relates to the second chakra. And we're going to get some clarity on that. And with this, so much has like this whole energy field, like it's its own hurricane, this second chakra, and it just kind of goes around and around, and I feel this pressure like feeling around it. So it's going to be interesting to find out what that is, and that is the next one. Remember, we have our fun Friday tomorrow night. It's going to be light. Lorelei is not going to be able to be there because she's going to be doing the Saturday event. She's preparing for that. And remember to sign up for that. And let me put that back in here so you can sign up. It's only $55, and we're going to be talking about all this energy at play, what that means for you and your particular sign. So please join us. It is at 5 o'clock on Saturday. So it's going to be so much great fun. So I will see you then. Well, actually, I'll see you tomorrow night, and then I'll see you on Saturday. This has been just phenomenal. I thank all of your input. If you have more that comes to you, and I know that many of you are sensitive, and if it comes to you after the fact, please write me and tell me, or post it on Facebook. And until tomorrow night, I love all of you. And let's say bye-bye, everybody. Open up your mics.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Glad to
That was
have
great.
you.
Bye,
Cheers.
everyone.
Not
I
your
love
tube.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You
Many
guys.
blessings.
Namaste.